Hi. I am here to invite you, if you would like, to read along with me again for another year with Books Love Everyone book group. This year, 2025, a small group of us was formed, and it's such a great group, and we're having so much fun. And I wasn't sure that I was going to try it again for another year, but they encouraged me to, and I encouraged them to pick a pairing of books as well. So each of them have picked a pairing of books. So this is a real Books Love Everyone book group community effort. As we finished our most recent Zoom conversation about October books, they asked, when is this coming out? And I was like, I don't know, later in the month. And there was a push. There was a gentle push to get it out earlier. And so I'm going to get it out today. I have picked the books I need to pick, and it's just a matter of committing. There's so many possibilities. There's so many ways that we could go. There's so many things I want to read with these women, and men are welcome too, but right now we're all women, and I love it. I love it. And I was really excited thinking about knowing some of the people that will read these with us. So yeah, if you don't know what Books Love Everyone book group is, A, it's got a really long title, and B, it's something that I started last year because I really enjoy pairing books, and I wanted to have a little group of people who wanted to read pairings of books with me. So the deal is that each month, in 2025 anyway, each month I presented a pair of books, usually a fiction and a nonfiction that had something in common, and we would read them in that month. We have a Discord. We barely use that Discord, and rarely for talking about books. Mostly it's about, I suppose we do use it for talking about books. I'm really terrible at Discord. If you've been around, you've heard me say that before, and it's the truth. But if a lot of people want to use it, then it's there. There's a group, and you can join it down below. So there's the Discord that we can talk about the book on. We also meet once a month on Zoom to talk for 45 minutes about the books that we read, and just about life and books in general, and what we're reading and what we're thinking and who we are. And it's fun. It's really fun, relaxed, wonderful group of people, and definitely makes me want to do it again. The same will apply in 2026. There are some pairings or groupings of books, and I say groupings because there's a little bit of a surprise in there for you this year. But same thing. You can read one, you can read both. You don't have to read both. Come as you are. And there's one Zoom meeting a month. There's a Discord. And also, I have at least 3 people who regularly, not every month, but regularly have read the books but been unable to join the Zooms, don't want to be on the Discord, who have communicated with me through direct messaging on Bookstagram, which I also love. And I feel like I've gotten to know those individuals pretty well as well, and I feel like they're part of the group too, except that they don't know the people who I meet with on Zoom, and the people on Zoom don't know those people, and yeah. So there's other avenues for which we can discuss these books. So if you want to, and mainly it's because of personal preference from those individuals, and also time differences. So if you want to read these books with me, but you don't want to be involved in the things that I've just mentioned, just direct message me and we'll have a conversation. I'm sitting on a bench, and Lola can lay under this bench. Lola is my dog. And sometimes I don't know she's there, and then I'll feel a little lick on the back of my leg, and that just happened. And my first reaction is it's Lola, but then I'm like, what if it's not Lola? So, excuse me. We're going to talk about these books. We're going to talk about these books. So the first set of books is a fiction and a nonfiction. The nonfiction I have read, and I do think a lot of people lead read-alongs for this, or even just individually reread this book at the beginning of a year. It's a pretty popular one. So this is Helene Hanff's 84 Charing Cross Road. And I'm just going to use pictures. I didn't go and find all my copies of all of these books because I have books. Full disclosure, my book life is an absolute wreck of a mess. And I have books everywhere. And I just wanted to get the video out and I didn't want to spend the time to find the books. So I'm going to put images of the books here. So first we are going to read 84 Charing Cross Road. It's a very slim volume, and like I said, you may be reading this for another group. You may be, you may have your own practice of reading it at the beginning of every year. It's a lovely, lovely little book. It's also a bit of a tearjerker, in my opinion. And this is about a American writer, a woman in the States, who forms a written communication friendship with a bookseller, a seller of rare and used books in the UK, and how this turns into a real friendship, It's a lovely, lovely story. If you've never read it before, I highly suggest that you do, even if you don't read it with me. We're gonna pair that with one I've never read. This is The Uncommon Reader by Alan Bennett. And from what I understand, this is about, it's a fictional world about Queen Elizabeth II finding herself in a small bookstore and picking up a book and reading it. I think that's what it's about. Let's see what the interwebs say it is about. And this one, I believe, is also quite a slim volume. I don't own this one yet, but I will soon. We want a synopsis, please. Here we go. When her corgis stray into a mobile library parked near Buckingham Palace, the Queen feels duty-bound to borrow a book, discovering the joy of reading widely and intelligently. She finds that her view of the world changes dramatically. Abetted in her newfound obsession by Norman, a young man from the royal kitchens, the Queen comes to question the prescribed order of the world and loses patience with the routines of her role as monarch. Ooh, I really like this. So we'll read those two together and it will be such a good time. I think those are perfect for January, for the beginning of the year. The next month, in February, we are going to read two books that I love. The thing that pulls these two together is, the thing that pulls the first two together is that love of reading. The thing that pulls February's books together is Newfoundland. So we are going to read for our nonfiction pick The Day the World Came to Town by Jim DeFede. I don't know if that's how you say his name, but that's how I say his name. And there's an amazing musical that came out of this book called Come From Away. This is the true story of what happens in this very small Canadian airport on 9/11. So it says, the description says, when 38 jetliners bound for the United States were forced to land at Gander International Airport in Canada by the closing of U.S. airspace on September 11th, the population of this small town on Newfoundland Island swelled from 10,300 to nearly 17,000. The citizens of Gander met the stranded passengers with an overwhelming display of friendship and goodwill. I have goosebumps just remembering reading this book. I'm going to leave it there. But this is one of the most feel-good true stories you will ever read, and it will restore your faith in humanity. It really will. And I'm really excited because long before we're reading this in February of 2026, before the end of 2025, I get to go see, once again, Come From Away performed. And if you are unfamiliar with Come From Away, it is a musical version of what happens in Gander on 9/11. And it is one of the absolute most beautiful musical soundtracks I have ever seen. And I strongly recommend that even if you can't see Come From Away, that you do listen to it. You can listen to all the music on Spotify or even on YouTube, wherever you find your music. We're going to pair that with a fiction by Emma Hooper, who is one of my favorite living authors. She's a Canadian author, and the first book that I ever read by her was recommended to me during one of my library versus library challenges several years ago. I haven't reread the book since then, but I'm really excited to. And this is Our Homesick Songs by Emma Hooper. For this one, I strongly recommend that you listen to the audio while you are reading the physical copy of the book, because the narrator of the audio sings portions that should be sung of this book, and it's so mesmerizing. It's just beautiful. This is the story of fishing families on a small island off the Newfoundland coast, and the fish aren't coming in, and they haven't come for a very long time. And so what does this community do? How does this community survive? How does this disrupt their lives? And it's particularly focusing on the members of one family. There is some magical realism in this, and mostly though it is just a family story. And it's really, really beautifully told. Emma Hooper is an author, yes. Like I said, one of my favorite living authors, but she's also a lyricist and a musician, and you can really feel that influence through the flow of the narrative. It's just beautiful. It's really beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to reading those two together, which I've never done. In March, we're going to read one of my favorites, and we're going to read one that I've never read before, but that I keep trying to read and I just haven't. And that is the one that I keep trying to read and just haven't. If I put it on this list, we have to, but I also think it's going to be quality, and I think that it's going to be compelling as well. That is The Sisters, the Saga of the Mitford Family by Mary S. Lovell. So let's just give you an official, I've talked about this book before in other videos, but if this is the first time you're seeing me, let's talk about that. It says, this is the story of a close, loving family splintered by the violent ideologies of Europe between the wars. Jessica was a communist, Debo became the Duchess of Devonshire, Nancy was one of the best-selling novelists of her day, the ethereally beautiful Diana was the most hated woman in England, and Unity Valkyrie, born in Swastika, Alaska, would become obsessed with Adolf Hitler. So I am fascinated by this family. I am fascinated by this family for a lot of reasons. For one thing, you can see how diverse these sisters become. There's also a brother, but you can see how diverse these sisters become in their ideologies, and yet they're all raised exactly the same way, and they're all raised together by the same parents with the same ideologies. It really is very much about the time period in which they are being raised and the place in which they are being raised and the world events that are happening. And also about nature, like their own individual understandings of morality and right and wrong, and of enemy and friend, of friend and foe. And so it's fascinating to learn about this family, but I want to read this. I want to read this book. I've owned it for so many years, decades, and I haven't read it yet, and I really, really want to read it, and I just don't. So maybe do I not want to read it? I don't know, but it's on the list, and we're going to read it alongside one of my favorite books by Muriel Spark, which is called The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. And I actually, I said I wasn't going to show any books, but I have this one sitting right here. So I'll just grab it. I've read this book multiple times, but it's such a good one. It is also a super short one. It says it is a sublimely funny book. It is a book to be read by all, unforgettable and universal. Romantic, heroic, comic, and tragic, unconventional schoolmistress Jean Brodie has become an iconic figure in post-war fiction. Her glamour, free-thinking ideas, and manipulative charm hold dangerous sway over her girls at the Marcia Blaine Academy, the creme de la creme, which is what she says all the time, who become the Brodie set, introduced to a privileged world of adult games that that they will never forget. So yes, it is all of those things, and it is also incredibly sad. It's also incredibly sad. I'll just warn you now. It has connections through ideology to the sisters, and it takes place in similar settings, similar time periods. And Miss Jean Brodie is a privileged individual who doesn't understand her privilege and the power of her words. And so it will be fun to discuss whether or not she is a sympathetic character, whether or not she is a protagonist in any way, shape, or form, but she is the focus of the story. And yes, it is funny, and yes, it is short, and yes, it is a joy to read, and it is also staggeringly devastating. And I love it, and you should read it. The next month, we are going to read one that I have read before that I actually get to teach to my current group of students, and possibly even to teach to them in this month that I have it planned for, but I don't know. That is Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. So let's read a synopsis. This is an American classic. If you haven't read this one, you really, really should. This is Their Eyes Were Watching God, an American classic. It literally says that in the synopsis. Their Eyes Were Watching God, an American classic, is the luminous and haunting novel about Janie Crawford, a Southern Black woman in the 1930s whose journey from a free-spirited girl to a woman of independence and substance has inspired writers and readers for close to 70 years. This poetic, graceful love story, rooted in the Black folk traditions and steeped in mythic realism, celebrates boldly and brilliantly African-American culture and heritage, and in a powerful, mesmerizing narrative, it pays quiet tribute to a Black woman who, though constricted by the times, still demanded to be heard. Originally published in 1937, it was not reissued. It went out of print, and it was not reissued until 1975. 3 decades later, Their Eyes Were Watching God is considered a seminal novel in American fiction. We are going to actually pair that with a nonfiction, a biography of the author. Her life is absolutely fascinating, absolutely fascinating. She was a sociologist, and she wrote a lot of nonfiction, and at first I was thinking maybe of picking one of those, but they're a little bit scary. She focuses a lot on folklore and folk magic, and some of those books that she has written, she's recorded, she's taken part in things that are descriptively kind of terrifying sometimes, and I want to keep this open to as broad of an audience as I can, but I do want to say that if you are enthralled by her writing and after you read her biography you want to know more about her, I strongly suggest that you read some of her nonfiction because it's fascinating. But we are going to read a biography of her. We're going to read Wrapped in Rainbows, The Life of Zora Neale Hurston. I don't know if it's Neil or Neely, but I have always said Neil, so that's what I'm probably going to default to all the time. So the synopsis here says, and I've never read this, the synopsis says, a woman of enormous talent and remarkable drive, Zora Neale Hurston published 7 books, many short stories, and several articles and plays over a career that spanned more than 30 years. Today, nearly every Black woman writer of significance, including Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison, and Alice Walker, acknowledges Hurston as a literary foremother, and her 1937 masterpiece, Their Eyes Were Watching God, has become a crucial part of the modern literary canon. Wrapped in Rainbows, the first biography of Zora Neale Hurston in more than 25 years, illuminates the adventures, complexities, and sorrows of an extraordinary life. Acclaimed journalist Valerie Boyd delves into Hurston's history, her youth in the country's first incorporated all-Black town, her friendship with luminaries such as Langston Hughes, her sexuality and short-lived marriages, and her mysterious relationship with voodoo. With the Harlem Renaissance, the Great Depression, and World War II as historical backdrops, Wrapped in Rainbows not only positions Hurston's work in her time, but also offers riveting implications for our own. So we're going to read that. Really looking forward to both of those. The next set of books, I've never read either of them, and they were actually suggested by one of our our group members, as was January's picks. And I point as if you're looking at the document I'm looking at. But I'd never even heard of these two, and they both sound so interesting to me. I'm excited to read these. So the first one we're going to read is The Curious Inheritance of a Blakely House by Joanna Davidson Politano. And I've never read anything by Joanna Davidson Politano, but the name of that and the cover of this just look so intriguing. So this is the fiction pick for the month of May, The Curious Inheritance of Blakely House. Let's find out what that's about. So it says, it is in 1901 when clockmaker and tinker Sidney Forrester receives a most unusual inheritance, Blakely House, the island estate of an estranged uncle she's never met. Ooh, do I have any estranged uncles I've never met who have houses on islands that they would like to leave for me? Because if so, I'm here for that. I'm here for that. Okay, so seems almost alive, revealing and hiding its secrets at will. It is filled with remarkable inventions, including an intriguing unfinished automaton Sidney is itching to get her skilled hands on. The estate is also home to a number of peculiar people, including two men intent on removing this interloper from the island, convinced that Sidney has something to do with the uncle's death. The late master's nephews contest the will and work against their cousin at every turn. This sounds fun. I'm not reading the whole thing because it's very long and I feel like it's going to tell me things I don't want to know before going in. But this sounds super fun. It's a fun mystery. We're pairing it with a nonfiction by Catherine Bailey called The Secret Rooms. The Secret Rooms. So this is all about secrets and houses. This one says, in April 1940, the ninth Duke of Rutland died in mysterious circumstances in one of the rooms of his family estate, Belvoir Castle. The mystery surrounding these rooms holds the key to a tragic story that is played out on the brutal battlefields of the Western Front and in the exclusive salons of Mayfair and Belgravia in the dying years of La Belle Epoque. Uncovered is a dark and disturbing period of the history of the Rutland family, and one which they were determined to keep hidden for over 60 years. 60 years on, The Secret Rooms is the true story of family secrets and one man's determination to keep the past hidden at any cost. Well, now I feel a little bad for reading their family secrets. If they want to keep them hidden at any cost, who am I to read them? But I will. So that sounds super, super fun. Next is one of my, so several years ago, the fiction in the month of June was my favorite book of the year. This is a long one. It's very readable. It's a very easy to read book, but it is a long one, so it's going to take a little bit of commitment. This is Karen Joy Fowler's Booth, which is on the surface. On the surface, it's about the family of John Wilkes Booth. It's about the assassination of Lincoln, but it is also very much about artistry. It's very much about active shooters. It's very much about grief. It is fictional, but it is one of the only books that I'm aware of that tells the story of the family of an active shooter. And this active shooter just happens to be one of the most famous active shooters of all time, John Wilkes Booth, who was responsible for the death of Abraham Lincoln. The whole family are very dramatic. The whole family is very into and influenced by the theater. And Shakespeare plays a huge role in this book. It is, you don't have to know Shakespeare for it to have an impact on you. It is one of the most beautiful books I have ever read. It is one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites, all-time favorites. Nothing I say can do it justice until you've read it too and we can talk it through. So I'm really, really inviting you into like my heart when I say, let's read this book together. We're going to pair it with one that I've read bits and pieces of but haven't read the whole of, and that is Judi Dench's Shakespeare, the Man Who Pays the Rent. Now, this is a delightful book, which is written in the form of a conversation. So it's like, Judi says, I say. Judi says, I say. Like, it's scripted in that way. And it's going to be really fun to listen to if you like to listen to audiobooks. It's also something that I know, based on my little delves in and out of it, is full of wisdom and joy and truth, and something that you're going to want to highlight as well. Or at least, write down quotes from if you get your books from the library, or if you only listen to it. So I am excited to pair both of these together. The nonfiction read is going to be a lighter lift in the month of June than the fiction read, but the fiction read is so rich and good. In July, in July, we have an anomaly. Maybe an anomaly. Something we haven't seen for Books Love Everyone before. We have seen this. We've seen that for the month of July, there is no fiction pick. The books are all fiction. But I can't say the books are both fiction, because I've actually picked 3 books to read together in the month of July. Now, please remember, you don't have to read all 3 of these books. You never have to read both of the books that are suggested, but I will read them, and I'm really excited about this tripling of these 3 fictional books in the month of July. The first one is The Belle of Belgrave Square by Mimi Matthews. The second is Thornyhold by Mary Stewart. And the third is Dragonwyck by Anna Seton. I love all of these books so much. They are among my favorites. They have been on favorite of the year lists for the last few years. Not the same lists. They've been on different lists over the last few years. Not the favorite of the year, but favorites of any given year. The Belle of Belgrave Square is the second in a 4-book series, but you don't have to read the others to enjoy The Belle of Belgrave Square. The Belle of Belgrave Square. Let's read about this, and then I'll add my 2 cents. So The Belle of Belgrave Square. A London heiress rides out to the wilds of the English countryside to honor a marriage of convenience with a mysterious and reclusive stranger. Tall, dark, and dour, the notorious Captain Jasper Blunt was once hailed a military hero, but tales abound of his children and his haunted estate in Yorkshire. What he requires now is a rich wife to ornament his isolated ruin, and he has his sight set on the enchanting Julia Witchwood. For Julia, an incurable romantic cursed with a crippling social anxiety, navigating a London ballroom is absolute torture. The only time Julia feels any degree of confidence is when she's on her horse. Unfortunately, a young lady can't spend the whole of her life in the saddle, so Julia makes an impetuous decision to take her future by the reins, and she proposes to Captain Blunt. In exchange for her dowry and her hand, Jasper must promise to grant her freedom to do as she pleases, to ride and to read as much as she likes without masculine interference. He readily agrees to her conditions with one provision of his own. Julia is forbidden from going into the tower rooms of his estate and snooping around his affairs. But the more she learns of the beastly former hero, the more intrigued she becomes. So yes, there are hints at Bluebeard, the fairy tale Bluebeard. There are hints at Jane Eyre. There are hints at pretty much any bit of Gothic Victorian literature you've ever read or heard of. And it's such a delicious, feel-good book. It is a romance. It absolutely is. But Mimi Matthews, if you've never read her, she has this way of adding depth and clarity and beauty to the most flighty of stories. And this is just an absolute and utter delight to read. And I think you probably will read more books by Mimi Matthews, if not in this series, once you've finished this one, or maybe you'll just pick up Jane Eyre again, like I probably will be prompted to do. But love this one. And the next one that we are going to read together is by Mary Stewart, who is one of my favorite authors. She writes Gothic fiction inspired by all of these things that I love that I've just mentioned. Thornyhold, though, took me by surprise the first time that I read it. It's a weird little book. So Thornyhold, it says Mary Stewart's storytelling is as spellbinding as ever in her 12th novel, a Gothic romance featuring sparkling prose, delightful characterization, and classic intrigue. The rambling house called Thornyhold is like something out of a fairy tale. Left to Gilly Ramsay by the cousin whose occasional visits brightened her childhood, the cottage set deep in a wild wood has come just in time to save her from a bleak future. With its reputation for magic and its resident black cat, Thornyhold offers Gilly more than just a new home. It offers her a chance to start over. The old house with its tufts of rosy house leek and the spreading gilt of the lichens was beautiful. Even the prisoning hedges were beautiful, protective with their rusty thorns, their bastions of holly and juniper, and at the corners, like towers, their thick columns of yew. This is the story of a little girl who keeps getting visits from her witchy aunt, a cousin, I guess, but she's more like an aunt figure. And then she inherits this person's house, and there is some individuals who want to contest the fact that she's been given the house. They think they had more right to the house. And the story unfolds from there, and it's just so warm and cozy and weird. It's super weird, and I love it. And the last one that I'm suggesting that you join us in reading in the month of July is Dragonwyck by another favorite Gothic author of mine. This one is described in this way. In the spring of 1844, the Wells family receives a letter from a distant relative, the wealthy landowner Nicholas Van Ryn. He has invited one of their daughters for an extended visit at his Hudson Valley estate, Dragonwyck. 18-year-old Miranda, bored with her local suitors and commonplace life on the farm, leaps at the chance for escape. She immediately falls under the spell of the master and his mansion, mesmerized by the Gothic towers, flowering gardens, and luxurious lifestyle, unaware of the dark, terrible secrets that await. For this one, there's going to be so much fun stuff to talk about historically. There's so many interesting connections to history and reality, history of New Amsterdam. The Dragonwyck Castle itself is a thing, and this is another one of those really fun, wonderful Gothic stories that is very much worth a read. So I think that all of these so far have seemed like they're going to be my favorite month, but right now this one is really standing out to me as my favorite month. I will definitely be looking forward to getting to July, getting to that halfway point in the year to read those three of some of my favorite stories of all time with you. From there, we go back to our go-to format of one fiction, one nonfiction. We have, one of my goals this year was to have fewer memoirs. In 2025, we had so many memoirs, but I do have this memoir, and that is Joy Harjo's Poet Warrior. Joy Harjo was our poet laureate in the United States for years. She is a Native American, and she is one of the most beautiful living poets. I mean, physically, sure, she's beautiful, but I mean her poetry. It blows me away all the time. I have read Poet Warrior I don't know how many times, and I want to share it with you. I want to talk about it with you. There's so much in it. It is very, very beautiful, and it is just as beautiful to read it as it is to listen to her. She very much goes into kind of like a rhythmic, chanty sort of voice at times, and it adds a level of intimacy, I think, to the storytelling that she is giving you. She is telling you story about her own life, but she is also telling you story about her people. And she's telling a story about this country, this land that this country is on. She is telling you history, and she's telling you present, and she's telling you the future. And it's a thing of unparalleled. It's unparalleled. And I highly, highly recommend that you read it, even if you don't read it with me. We're going to pair that with a book I've never read by an author I have not read. I've read her Birchbark House series, her children's books, but I've not read anything by her that she's written for adults, even though so many things interest me, and I have added so many of her books to possible reading lists for years. We're finally going to do it. This is the first book in a very long series of interconnected books, but I don't think you have to read them in order in any way, shape, or form. I just didn't know where to start with her, so I picked this one. This is Louise Erdrich's Love Medicine. So let's find out what that is all about. Louise Erdrich is also a Native American author. They are from different tribes, different locations, but they are both Native American authors, and I'm excited to have that throughway. All right, so this is the stunning first novel in Louise Erdrich's Native American series, Love Medicine, tells the story of two families, the Kashpas and the Lamartines. Written in Erdrich's uniquely poetic, powerful style, it is a multi-generational portrait of strong men and women caught in an unforgettable drama of anger, desire, and the healing power that is love medicine. I like a synopsis like that really doesn't tell us too much at all, and yet we get this feeling of what it's about. So it's going to be an intergenerational epic, and I'm excited for it. I think I'm really going to like her writing based on the children's books I've read by her before. In September, I think I can say this about every single month. I'm so excited to get to September. We're going to read another one of my favorite books from the last few years, and we're going to pair it with a nonfiction that I haven't read yet that I've really been wanting to read for a long time. And these books, I think, are both so fall, autumn coded that they're perfect for September. So we're going to read Alice Hoffman's The Invisible Hour. This is absolutely one of my favorite books by Alice Hoffman, but it is also just one of my favorite books. It does feature, now I told one of our members that I wouldn't do time travel, but I'm just realizing this does feature time travel. I like time travel books, what can I say? It does feature time travel. This is some magical realism. It is about a cult, and it starts feeling just like a straight up historical fiction. For most of the book, it is a straight up historical fiction about an unmarried teen girl who runs away from home and ends up joining a cult and marrying the cult leader and having her child into this cult. And then things get weird. Things get very weird. It takes place in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and there is an element of time travel, and there is a connection to Nathaniel Hawthorne, the author of The Scarlet Letter, which plays a part in this book. It's a short one, and it's so easy to read, and it's so well written, and it's such a surprising and refreshing piece of storytelling. Just suspend reality and let it be what it is. It's magical realism. Just let it be. We're going to pair that with The Sinners All Bow by Kate Winkler Dawson, which is a book I have had my eye on for a while now, before it was even released. This is nonfiction, and the synopsis says, acclaimed journalist, podcaster, and true crime historian Kate Winkler Dawson tells the true story of the scandalous murder investigation that became the inspiration for both Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter and the first true crime book published in America. On a cold winter day in 1832, Sarah Maria Cornell was found dead in a quiet farmyard in a small New England town. When her troubled past and a secret correspondence with charismatic Methodist minister Reverend Ephraim Avery was uncovered, more questions emerged. Was Sarah's death a suicide or something much darker? Determined to uncover the real story, Victorian writer Catherine Reed Arnold Williams threw herself into the investigation as the trial was unfolding and wrote what many claim to be the first American true crime narrative, Fall River. The murder divided the country and inspired Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter, but the Reverend was not convicted, and questions linger to this day about what really led to Sarah Cornell's death, until now. In The Sinners All Bow, acclaimed true crime historian Kate Winkler Dawson travels back in time to 19th century small-town America, emboldened to finish the work Williams started nearly 2 centuries before, using modern investigative advancements including forensic knot analysis and criminal profiling, which was invented 55 years later with Jack the Ripper. Dawson fills in the gaps of Williams's research to find the truth and bring justice to an unsettling mystery that speaks to our past as well as our present, anchored by 3 women who subverted the script they were given. I want to read it. I want to read it now. 2026, Books Love Everyone is going to be such a good reading year. Okay, in October, I have 2 witchy books, and they are 2 of my favorite books of all time. Again, I happen to just have this one sitting here, so I'll pull it out. Our nonfiction book is going to be The Witch of Ai, which is by Catherine Nurenberger. And this is a series of poetic, lyrical, short essays, vignettes. Some of them are actual poems, and each of them, for most of the collection, tells the story of an individual that was accused of witchcraft at some point in history. But they are also underneath the subtext is a lot deeper and more sinister than that. And in the end, it all connects back to Nurenberger herself. And it's a book that kind of defies genre. So and it's one of my favorite books of all time. So let's see what the synopsis says, because I'm not doing it justice, but I don't imagine a synopsis will be able to either. Okay. It says, this amazingly wise and nimble collection investigates the horrors inflicted on so-called witches of the past. The Witch of Ai unearths salves, potions, and spells meant to heal, yet interpreted by inquisitors as evidence of evil. The author describes torture and forced confessions alongside accounts of gentleness of legendary midwives. In one essay about a trial, we learn through folklore that Jesus' mother was a midwife who cured her own son's rheumatism. In other essays, there are subtle parallels to contemporary discourse around environmental destruction, etc. Nurenberger weaves in her own experiences too. There's an ironic look at her own wedding, an uncomfortable visit to the Prague Museum of Torture, and an afternoon spent tearing out a garden in a mercurial fit. Her researched material is eye-opening and lively, an absolutely thrilling collection. Yeah, that doesn't do it. That doesn't do it. Don't be put off by the word torture that was used so many times in that synopsis. It's not hard to read. It's not difficult to read. Yeah, that doesn't do it. That doesn't do it justice. Let's see here. Hey Lola, can you stop, please? Let's see if I can read a sample from the actual book so you can get a feel for her prose. So she's actually listed this as essays. They don't feel like essays though. Okay, so this is the first line from this book, from the first essay, vignette, whatever. Or let's read the first paragraph, say. It says, an aspen grove lives for 1,000 years, the tongues of the leaves shaking after the wind. No aspen tree is just a tree. Each is also a limb rooted into a much larger body that is an entire forest breathing together. They called the old women crones, hags, cunning women, and witches, names to make a daughter think she should devote herself to becoming something, anything, other than what she is. Like the women I descend from, the ones called hysterics and manics, obsessives and depressives, I feel as if I have an aspen grove that stretches from my stomach to my throat. Sometimes I can hardly speak for trying to hush those leaves. This little apothecary I keep of wild lettuce, St. John's wort, a dozen jars of elderberry syrup, is a way of saying to myself what I need to know of myself. And I'll pause there. You can feel the narrative, right? And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. We're gonna pair that with I almost said nonfiction, fiction, absolutely fiction. Fiction by Sylvia Townsend Warner. We're gonna pair that with Lolly Willows. Lolly Willows. Let's read the back of Lolly Willows. It says, this is a great shout of life and individuality, an act of defiance that gladdens the soul. Lolly Willows, so gentle and accommodating, has depths no one suspects. When she suddenly announces that she is leaving London and moving alone to the depths of the countryside, her overbearing relatives are horrified. But Lolly has a greater, far darker calling than family: witchcraft. The book, we don't need to read that. So this is essentially about a woman in, I think, like the Edwardian period, maybe the 1920s. But she is a single woman who is basically the property of her family. She's unmarried. She's middle-aged. She has been relegated to simply taking care of her nieces and nephews, even though it's not anything she ever wanted. And she just decides one day that it's better to sell her soul to the devil and go live a free life than to live the life that has been prescribed for her. And don't be put off by that sell your soul to the devil thing. Really don't. This is an absurdist tale of trying to find autonomy, freedom, and personal agency. And it's so beautiful. Let's look a little bit. Again, let's read. She goes into a shop, and the description of the shop and what happens there is lovely. There were several other customers, and while she stood waiting to be served, she looked about her. The aspect of the shop pleased her greatly. It was small and homely. Fruit and flowers and vegetables were crowded together in countrified disorder. On the sloping shelf in the window, among apples and rough-skinned cooking pears and trays of walnuts, chestnuts, and filberts, was a basket of eggs, smooth and brown, like some larger kind of nut. At one side of the room was a wooden staging. On this stood jars of homemade jam and bottled fruits. It was as though the remnants of summer had come into the little shop for shelter. On the floor lay a heap of earthly turnips. When Laura looked at the bottled fruits, the sliced pears and syrup, the glistening red plums, the green gages, she thought of the woman who had filled those jars and fastened on the bladders. Perhaps the greengrocer's mother lived in the country, a solitary old woman picking fruit in a darkening orchard, rubbing her rough fingertips over smooth-skinned plums, a lean, wiry old woman standing with upstretched arms among the fruit trees as though she were a tree herself, growing out of the long grass, with arms stretched up like branches. It grew darker and darker until she worked on, methodically stripping the quivering top boughs one after the other. As Laura stood waiting, she felt a great longing. It weighed upon her like the load of ripened fruit upon a tree. She forgot the shop, the other customers, her own errand. She forgot the winter outside, the people going by on their wet pavements. She forgot that she was in London. She forgot the whole of her London life. She seemed to be standing alone in a darkening orchard, her feet in the grass, her arms stretched up to the pattern of leaves and fruit, her fingers seeking the rounded ovals of the fruit among the pointed ovals of the leaves. The air about her was cool and moist. There was no sound, for the birds had left off singing and the owls had not yet begun to hoot. No sound, except sometimes the soft thud of a ripe plum falling into the grass. To lie there, a compact shadow among shadows. The back of her neck ached a little with the strain of holding up her arms. Her fingers searched among the leaves. She started as the man of the shop came up to her and asked her what she wished for. Her eyes blinked. She looked with surprise at the gloves upon her hands. "I want one of those large chrysanthemums," she said, and turned toward the window where they stood in a brown jar. There were the apples and pears, the eggs, the disordered nuts overflowing from their compartments. There on the floor were the earthy turnips, and close at hand were the jams and bottled fruits. If she was behaving foolishly, if she looked like a woman roused out of a fond dream, these were kindly things to waken to. The man at the shop also had a kind face. He wore a gardener's apron, and his hands were brown and dry, as if he had been handling earth. Which one would you like, ma'am? I'll take them all. I didn't even realize that The Witch of Eye and the part that I was going to read you from Lolly Willows were both about trees. Because I didn't realize that I was going to read you anything from The Witch of Eye until I did. But I already knew that I was going to read you a little bit of Lolly Willows. Such good writing, such wonderful things to think about, and there will be so much to discuss from both of those. In the month of November, I think I have this one here too, maybe not. In the month of November, we're going to read one that I absolutely love. I've read both of these books. There is a fiction and a nonfiction. The fiction and nonfiction, both of them in the month of November, are quite long, but very, very well worth it. One is Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilcher. If you've never read Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilcher, you are in for one of the greatest reading delights of your life. It is so heartening. It's so heartening. No synopsis is going to do this justice at all, but let's go ahead and read one. So it says, Elfrida Phipps, once of London's stage, moved to the English village of Dibben in hopes of making a new life for herself. Gradually, she settled into the comfortable familiarity of village life, shopkeepers knowing her tastes, neighbors calling her by name. Still, she finds herself lonely. Oscar Blundell gave up his life as a musician in order to marry Gloria. They have a beautiful daughter, Francesca, and it is only because of their little girl that Oscar views his sacrificed career as worthwhile. Carrie returns from Austria at the end of an ill-fated affair with a married man to find her mother and sister sharing a home and squabbling endlessly. With Christmas approaching, Carrie agrees to look after her sister's awkward and quiet teenage daughter, Lucy, so that her mother might enjoy a romantic fling in America. Sam Howard is trying to pull his life back together after his wife has left him for another. He is without home and without roots. All he has is his job. Business takes him to northern Scotland, where he falls in love with the lush, craggy landscape and sets his sights on a house. It is the strange, rippling effects of a tragedy that will bring these 5 characters together in a large, neglected estate house near the Scottish fishing town of Cregan. Yeah, that simply does not do this book justice. This book had me bawling by the end with joy, sheer joy. Yes, there is a tragedy. Yes, there are lots of people to follow, but it's very easy to follow. And there's just something about Rosamund Pilcher's writing which is magic. It is magic. This is a perfect book for November. It's a sink down into it and let it envelop you and hold you and entertain you book. We're going to pair that with a nonfiction, which is not like anything I've ever suggested for this group of readers, but it's Mrs. Adams in Winter by Michael O'Brien. And the writing in this and the history in this is just so intriguing. So it says, early in 1815, Louisa Catherine Adams and her young son left St. Petersburg in a heavy Russian carriage and set out on a difficult journey to meet her husband, John Quincy Adams, in Paris. She traveled through the snows of Eastern Europe, down the Baltic coast of Prussia, across the battlefields of Germany, and into a France that was then experiencing the tumultuous events of Napoleon's return from Elba. Along the way, she learned what the long years of Napoleon's wars had done to Europe, what her old friends in the royal court in Berlin had experienced during the French occupation, how it felt to have her life threatened by reckless soldiers, and how to manage fear. The journey was a metaphor for a life spent crossing borders. Born in London in 1775, she'd grown up partly in France, and in 1797 she had married into the most famous American political dynasties and become the daughter-in-law of John and Abigail Adams. And it's just a good story. It's nonfiction, and it's all historically accurate, and it's all corroborated with, firsthand evidence. But it is just a really good story. It's such a dynamic read. and you're going to fall in love with Mrs. Adams. For December, there's 3 again. And the thing that pulls them together is what one of them is, actually. And that is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Now, A Christmas Carol you can read in one sitting. It is incredibly short. But we're going to read A Christmas Carol. If you've never read it before, definitely read it. And then we're going to read 2 books that give a nod to A Christmas Carol in 2 different ways. One is a straight up retelling of A Christmas Carol, and it's super fun. It is a YA. It's the only YA I have on here, but it's really well written and it's really funny. It's laugh out loud funny, and it's a interesting twist on A Christmas Carol. So it says on Christmas, it's by Cynthia Hand. So it says, on Christmas Eve, 5 years ago, 17-year-old Holly Chase was visited by 3 ghosts who showed her how selfish and spoiled she'd become. They tried to convince her to mend her ways. She didn't, and then she died. Now she's stuck working for the top secret company Project Scrooge as their latest Ghost of Christmas Past. So far, Holly's afterlife has been miserable, but this year's Scrooge is different. This year's Scrooge might change everything. The Afterlife of Holly Chase is a witty, poignant, and insightful novel about life, love, and seizing second or third chances. Perfect for listeners. Oh, because I'm reading the Audible description. Perfect for readers who loved, it just starts to name other books by this author. So, I haven't read this in years. This came out in 2017, and I think I read it in 2017, and I'm just really excited to give it another go. If I remember correctly, it is hilarious, and it's also a cute little romance, and it is obviously a retelling of A Christmas Carol. So we'll read A Christmas Carol, we'll read The Afterlife of Holly Chase, and then we will read an adult Christmas romance by Jenny Bayliss that I listened to last year, loved so much that I purchased a copy of it to read physically this year, 2025, and want to read with you in 2026. And that is Kiss Me at Christmas. And we'll read that synopsis and we'll call this video a day. So Kiss Me at Christmas, that is about a teacher and a group of misfit students trying to save a theater, and like an acting theater. And to do so, they want to do a benefit performance of A Christmas Carol. So that's how A Christmas Carol ties in here. This says, Christmas can officially get stuffed because Harriet Smith is not feeling bright and merry this year. She hasn't for a while. So when her college-aged daughter opts for Manhattan's winter wonderland instead of Christmas at home, Harriet finds herself seeking solace in a wine-soaked one-night stand. There is a one-night stand in this. If that bothers you, it's just a moment. It's a blip. It's a blip in the story to set up how these two meet each other. And from there, you have nothing to fear, okay? So don't let that stop you from enjoying just the most delightful little Christmas romance book. But how Harriet will spend the holidays is swiftly decided for her after she takes the fall for some students who break into the town's old winter theater. To get the students off the hook, the theater's elderly owner requests that Harriet direct the washed-out stage's final Christmas performance, and Harriet will do anything to help the kids, even work with the owner's lawyer, who, as it turns out, is her less-than-impressed one-night stand. Directing the play with him won't exactly change her life, but it might just reignite the Christmas spirit and remind her what makes life merry and bright again. And we'll end the year with so much joy. I am so excited about all of these books. I hope that you will read them, even if you don't read them with me, but I would love for you to read them with me. And let's discuss them and talk about them. There's so much here. There's so much feel good. There's so much history and commentary on our lives today, and there's mystery and romance and an undercurrent, I think, through all of them. Can't speak for all of them because I haven't read all of them, but an undercurrent through all of them of self-discovery and ways in which we can free ourselves to be more ourselves, which is something that I really, really aspire to and believe in every day of my life. So will you join us? Will you join us? I would love to have you. Our group would love to have you. And until we meet again, let's go read.